Early in the morning, pricey vehicles drove by shimmering shop fronts on the opulent streets of Los Angeles. The city was bustling with activity as people sipped coffee at hip cafes. Yet in the middle of all the luxury, a family was sitting huddled on the pavement, totally cut off from this world of excess. The mother held her two children close to her while clutching a thin, worn-out blanket. The father sat quietly watching over a few plastic bags while the young child curled up by her mother's side, her eyelids drooping with fatigue. A black SUV slowed down and pulled over inside as he kept his eyes on the ground, either ignoring them entirely or giving them scornful glances. Ellen DeGeneres was sitting there idly looking through her phone. She happened to look out the window when she suddenly froze. A family was sitting on the sidewalk with their kids, and Ellen put her phone down right away. She had seen scenes like this before, but this time it felt different. The children's despair struck her like a kick to the stomach. "Pull over," she said firmly. When the vehicle came to a stop, the security guard asked her, "Are you sure?" With unwavering focus, Ellen watched the family. "Open the door." "Hello, I'm Ellen," she whispered softly as the door opened and she emerged. The father slowly raised his head, and his weary eyes met Ellen's. The man's voice was sorrow when he said, "I've seen you on TV." Ellen gave a small smile, but it was quickly erased by the sadness on his face. She knelt down to the children's level, and the little girl flinched and clung to her mother. "What are you doing out here?" the man asked, and his wife took a deep breath. "They threw us out," and Ellen's expression darkened as she took a deep breath. This wasn't just an encounter anymore. This was about justice. Ellen tried to process what she had just heard, and her eyes flickered back to the children who were shivering. The little girl curled deeper into her mother's coat for warmth, and a wave of rage ran through her. "What exactly happened?" she asked, her voice now laced with determination. "We lived in that building for years, paying our rent on time, and never causing trouble. Then one morning management told us we had to leave. The reason there wasn't one." Ellen furrowed her brows. "Did you go to the police?" The woman nodded. "But the landlord used the private property law against us. The police said there was nothing we could do, and every black family in the building received an eviction notice. The white residents were allowed to stay," while Ellen held her breath, her eyes burning. "Mommy, will we ever have a room again?" the young girl murmured as she held on to her mother. Ellen felt her throat tighten as the question sliced through her like a scalpel. Children should never have to question whether they will have a place to sleep. She got up, shoved her hands into her pockets, and nodded to herself, saying, "This won't end like this." The man gave her a startled look. "What do you mean?" Ellen's eyes narrowed resolutely. The entire world would hear about this. There was no turning back. The following day, Ellen wasted no time in warning her team that this was something she wouldn't tolerate. She first hired a lawyer to look into the family's legal rights, but that was just the beginning. Later that day, she posted a picture of herself on social media with the caption, "Today I met a family. A young girl asked me, 'Will we ever have a room again?' Tell me, should a child ever have asked that?" The post received thousands of shares after becoming viral. Although the story was covered by the media, the actual action had not yet been taken. Ellen personally addressed the matter on live air the next day. "I've been doing this show for years, and we started with comedy, but today I have nothing funny to say." The audience fell silent, a rare moment of total stillness in a room that was usually full of laughter and applause. Ellen then started telling the family story about how they had been taken from their home by force and how systemic discrimination had left them defenseless. Injustice was still alive and well. But the moment that hit the hardest was when I could still hear that little girl's voice in my mind, and I wondered if we would ever have a room again. For that reason, I can't let this go. The audience was shocked when celebrities, activists, and influencers began to speak out in support of Ellen's demand for action, but the family's landlord and the flat management had the most powerful reaction. Ellen was given a formal warning to back off, saying she was exaggerating the situation, but it was too late. She wasn't going anywhere. "From now on, you won't be the one speaking. We will," and suddenly, things got out of hand. Thousands of people used the hashtag, "Will a Weaver have a room again?" to demand justice and accountability after Ellen's broadcast. But the real breakthrough came when her legal team's investigations showed that the flat management had been systematically evicting black tenants for years under pretense of changing policies. In the interim, Ellen found temporary housing for the family at a hotel, but she knew that wasn't enough and that a larger step needed to be taken. So she started This Goes Beyond a Single Household. Hundreds of thousands of people in America lose their homes simply because of the color of their skin. We have the power to change that. The campaign took off like wildfire. Celebrities, business leaders, and athletes joined, and within days, millions of dollars have been raised. But as the donations poured in, the family's belongings still sat outside their former apartment building, untouched, abandoned, until one morning, a large moving truck pulled up. Ellen was there in person. The driver stepped out, handing her a document. Ms. DeGeneres, everything is ready. She took the paper, smiled, and turned to the family. The mother clutched her children, hopeful but hesitant. I found a home for you, but not just any home. Ellen pulled out a key and handed it to the father. This is yours. Forever. The man stood frozen. The mother gasped. The children squealed in excitement and clung to each other. Tears streamed down the woman's face as she embraced Ellen. How did you do this for us? Ellen simply smiled, because no one should ever be homeless just because of their skin color. As the fundraising campaign continued, the lawsuit against the apartment management gained traction. Public pressure intensified, and state officials were forced to take notice. And just like that, the door to real legislative change had been opened. But for now, the biggest victory was that one family no longer had to live on the streets. A few weeks later, Ellen visited the family in their new home. The little girl ran into her room excitedly, showing off her toys. Look, I finally have my own room, Ellen chuckled, watching the pure joy in the child's eyes. The parents standing nearby had tears in their eyes, not sadness, but gratitude. But for Ellen, this was only the beginning. After months of pressure, lawmakers finally introduced a new bill to strengthen protections against housing discrimination. On the day of the official announcement, Ellen took the stage during her show. The fundraising campaign's overwhelming support had helped hundreds of families nationwide secure permanent housing. More importantly, the fight for policy reform was gaining momentum. The audience erupted in applause as Ellen looked around the crowd, and her gaze fell on a familiar face sitting in the front row, smiling brightly: the little girl. At that moment, Ellen realized that this wasn't just a story about kindness, but also about justice. This isn't one person's victory. It's all of us. And when we unite our voices, we can change the world.